This week, we will be learning about comparing fractions. The I can statement for this lesson is I can compare two fractions with the same numerator or the same denominator by reasoning about their size and use the symbols greater than, less than, and equal to. So the question is, which unit fraction represents a larger amount? Now, these two fractions are unit fractions. Notice that each one of these fractions has a 1 in the numerator. So we are comparing fractions that have like numerators. The numerators are the same. They are both 1. So the reasoning that we have to do is with the number in our denominator. Now, hopefully you remember that the denominator is the number that tells us how many equal pieces or parts each of our fraction models will have. So if these are our fraction strips, which would be very helpful to have during this lesson, then you are going to take your whole fraction strip and you can take out your pieces that are 1/3 and take out your pieces that are 1/10. So if you look at your 1/3, so we're looking at one of the fraction strips for 1/3, and we're looking at one of the fraction strips for 1/10, which fraction would be the larger amount? So what do you think? Is a 1/3 of the fraction, 1/3 of the whole, a bigger amount? Or is 1/10 of the whole a bigger amount? I hope you noticed that 1/3 of the whole is a bigger amount. Now let's go back and take a look at that. Remember, when we are dividing one whole into equal parts, the denominator tells me the number of parts. So when I am making thirds, I am only going to have 3 equal parts. When I am making tenths, I am going to have 10 equal parts. Look how many pieces the tenths are. As the denominator is getting bigger, the pieces of my fraction are getting smaller. That is very important when we are comparing our fractions. Let's think of another fraction to compare, another group of fractions to compare. I want you to think and make a prediction. Do you think 1/4 or 1/2 represents a larger amount? Which is going to be a bigger piece of the whole, 1/4 or 1/2? Make that prediction now. Now, once you made your prediction, I want you to take out your fraction strips if you have them. If not, you can look at the fraction strips on the screen. So here we have one whole that we are going to break into parts. We are going to break to represent our 1/4. We need to divide it into 4 equal parts. So here are my fourths. To represent 1/2, we are going to need to divide our whole into 2 equal parts. Now look at and compare those parts. 1 of my fourths compared to 1 of my halves. This is 1/2 of the whole. This is 1/4 of the whole. So, which fraction represents a larger amount? Do you want to change your mind now that you looked at your fraction strips, or do you think you were correct? I hope that you said 1/2 because 1/2 of the whole is a larger portion than 1/4 of the whole. Remember, when we're thinking about our comparing, the bigger the denominator, the smaller the pieces. So my 1/2 would be a larger amount than my 1/4. So again, just to remind you, when we're comparing fractions with like numerators, we're going to be looking at those denominators. And we're going to remember that the larger the denominator, the smaller the fraction pieces will be. Now look at the difference with these two fractions to compare. These two fractions have the same denominator, but their numerators are different. So we want to think about comparing 1/4 and 3/4. Which fraction would represent the larger amount? Now this is a little bit different thinking, so you really have to stop and think about it. Here are two models. Here, remember, both of our models should have fourths, fourths, and fourths. This circle has 1, 2, 3, 4. This circle has 1, 2, 3, 4. The pieces are the same size. 4 and 4 in the denominator tells me that these pieces are the same size. So 1/4 shaded in or 3/4 shaded in. So which amount would be more? 3/4 is a bigger or represents a larger amount. So let's think about our strategies for comparing fractions. First, it's always good to use a model. You can use your fraction strips when you're solving these, or you can draw a model on your paper to help you solve them. When you're drawing your model, always make sure that you're starting off with two pieces that are the same size. So if you're going to use circles to represent your fractions, make sure your two circles you're comparing are the same size. Okay? If your fractions have the same denominator, like 4/6 and 2/6, both of the denominators are sixths. So you're going to look at your sixth. Would 4/6 or would 2/6 be a larger amount? In this case, 4/6 would be greater than 2/6. But what if we have two fractions that have the same numerator but different denominators? Here we have 2/3 and 2/8. If the denominators are different, remember the size of your pieces are going to be different. So for your thirds, you would break your fraction into 3 equal pieces. 1, 2, 3. For your eighths, you're going to break your fraction into 8 little pieces. Remember, the bigger the denominator, the smaller the piece. So 2/3 shaded in is much greater than 2/8 shaded in. All right, you're going to complete the second half of your lesson notes. And remember, you can go back and watch the video again to see how to compare fractions with same denominators or same numerators.